Hi, United in Recovery family. I'm glad to be able to share with you as we move towards Christmas. And as we do, and we look at how we prepare ourselves to be strong in our recovery for the anxiety that sometimes holidays bring, and strong enough also to just be able to celebrate and enjoy all the blessings that holidays bring. We're looking at the meaning of Christmas and what it can teach us about recovery. And particularly last week, Pastor Brooke talked about how sometimes we go through seasons where God seems silent, where our recovery, our faith seems kind of dry. Like, are we really growing? Are we getting better? And how to respond in those seasons. Today, I want to talk to you about what to do in the seasons of darkness, seasons where you can't really see the way out, where sometimes everything just seems so heavy, every obstacle looks so big, you may not feel like you can get past it. So I want to share with you a scripture that talks about Jesus' birth. And it talks about not just like the mechanics of his birth, who he was born to, where it happened, when it happened, but what it meant, what was really going on. And this is from John's Gospel, the first chapter. It says, "What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it." That's what we're told was happening when Jesus was born, that there was a lot of darkness, that there was a lot of our world that operated out of line with the way it was created to operate, that there were a lot of people who were living out of line with the way they were created to live, and of course that's still the case. But what Jesus came to do was to shed the light, to show us, hey, this is how you were created. This was what you were made for. This is how to really live your life. This is what life is really all about. And so what happens is the light comes into the darkness. And maybe you have darkness in your life. Maybe it's shame from something you've done that you wish you hadn't, a struggle you have that you don't think should be a struggle. Unfortunately, deciding that one of our struggles shouldn't be a struggle does very little to help us overcome it, but we wrestle with that in our heads. Maybe it's darkness that comes from an outside circumstance, a challenge facing you that you just say, there's that mountain and I have no idea how I'm ever going to be able to climb over it. Here's what Jesus does. He brings the light into the darkness. Now listen, how does light defeat darkness? It's very simple. Light shows up, right? Light, as long as light shows up, light will always defeat darkness. The only time that darkness wins is when the light doesn't show up. Look up in the sky at night. You see stars billions of light years away. Like, travel at the speed of light for billions of years and you'd get to one of those stars. And what happens, right? That light still pierces all the way through billions of light years of darkness to reach us. How can that possibly be? That's how powerful light is. It's the same with our faith, and we learn about this in recovery. Now, one of the things in recovery sometimes that can keep the light out is that we get to a point where we kind of think, you know what, I don't really need to look inside myself. That my issues can be solved by an external circumstantial change. I don't need to look inside. And then we wait and we wait and we wait on external circumstances to change and to fix our problems. And guess what? We just keep waiting, right? That never happens. Well, there's a step that moves us from that waiting to being a part of the solution, and that's step 4. You may remember step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Now, I want you to hear what the 12 and 12 says about that on page 46. Referring to step 4, it says, often the problem is to help them discover a chink in the walls their ego has built through which the light of reason can shine. Right? When we decide that we will only be happy, that we'll only be fulfilled, that things can only be good when our external circumstances change, what that really is an ego problem. And we might have too much self-esteem, we might have too little self-esteem, but whatever it is, our ego has built us up to the point of saying either we're too, we've got too much ego, and hey, we don't have any problems, it's all somebody else's problem, or we have too little ego, we're not powerful enough to do anything, and not like step one, like where it's good to be powerless, but like the bad bit of that where you look at yourself and you're like, oh, I'm just awful at everything, and other people can get sober and I never will. That awful bit, that's too little ego. The idea you don't have any problems, that's too much. Whatever it is, it builds a wall, and that wall keeps the light out. And then what recovery does, what step 4 does, is it creates just a chink in that wall, right? Just a little hole in that wall that the light of reason, the light of faith, we would say the light of Christ can shine through. And when we look inside ourselves, we realize that we have a role to play in our own recovery, right? We had a role to play in how we got here, and we have a role to play in where we go from here. And it's funny because you would think step 4 would be just such a difficult step that would really be depressing, but it's not. It's a step of hope, because we look at it and we say, yeah, here's how it is, but it doesn't have to be, because I've got a power that's greater than me that can help me be different than I would be on my own. So tonight, a good thing to talk about in your groups, if you're not able to go to an open share group tonight, maybe to write about in your journal, or just to think about, is where does darkness have too much of a grip on my life? And where do I need to let the light shine in? Where do I need a chink in the wall? And listen, the light's shining right now. It's shining. It's been shining. But it's about allowing it to shine in. So God bless you. I hope you're doing well and preparing for a Merry Christmas.